very lucky today to have some time to be joined by Mr. RedZone himself, Scott Hanson. For any NFL fan down across the world, but certainly down in these parts in Australia, in New Zealand, RedZone is part of being a fan. You can catch RedZone, you can watch it via the ESPN app with your Foxtel, with your Sky New Zealand or your Fetch TV login. We know it's on Game Pass. It is part of being a fan. It is part of the early risers down here, and someone who knows all about training their body for the grueling NFL season in the media world is Scott. So, Scott, thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome. I am thrilled to be on your show because the only time I get to interact with Australian and New Zealand NFL fans and NFL RedZone fans is usually on social media, which, is somewhat passive because it might be just text or whatever on Twitter and whatnot. But to be able to speak and just salute everyone that's watching in those two areas, to wake up that early in the morning on Monday morning is a commitment unlike any other NFL RedZone fans on planet Earth. And so I'm just excited to be here, and thank you to all the men and women who make that sacrifice in their sleep schedule to catch every touchdown from every game.
I got to tell you, when the debate started over in the States about whether daylight savings was going to be permanent or go away, people who felt it perhaps more than any other outside of the 50 states, Australian and Kiwi NFL fans going, wait a minute, does this mean it's never going to get earlier than 4 a.m. to kick off? Is the sweet 5 a.m. that comes along mid-season once the clocks all start turning both ways? You guys jump back, we spring forward, whatever the saying is. So we felt that. But let's start there. Let's start with what it is to be a fan down here. The first question you get asked, and I know you've been asked it 1,000 times, do you take a toilet break during the show? The answer is no. I'm going to save you from answering that one itself. I know the answer is no, barring, I think, once you said during a year you were playing injured, and salute to you for going through a hurt season, but you don't take the toilet break. But what do you do to train your body to get ready for 7 hours of commercial-free fun on a Monday morning here and on a Sunday afternoon over your way?
Yeah, it's part of the show is stamina and enthusiasm and energy in the 5th hour, the 6th hour, the 7th hour, the same way you had it in the 1st hour, 2nd hour, 3rd hour. And I mean, not to make it sound, overblown, but I like to stay in shape. I actually just got out of the shower a minute ago. We're recording this from Los Angeles, obviously where I live. I just got out of the shower a minute ago because I was just in the gym and I was looking at the clock and I'm like, oh, I got that interview. I got to get back home, get on the screen right here. So I'll do cardio 5, 6, 7 days a week sometimes. And in the middle of, I'm going to pat myself on the back. In the middle of May or June, the deep off season, when I've got the last 10 minutes on the treadmill or the elliptical or whatever else I'm doing, I'm sweating. I feel like tapping out. I'm like, no, this next 10 minutes, this next 15 minutes is for the 6th hour of week 9 in the middle of the season on NFL RedZone, because I want to still have that energy and that passion. And it probably comes across, but I'm a kinetic communicator. So part of the mental and verbal component of my game is physical as well. So yeah, it's about staying ready. And the bladder is well trained, by the way. I know people are fascinated by it. It doesn't bother me when people ask it. I'll even tell you this. Not only do I not go during the 7 hours of NFL RedZone, when I get off the air, believe it or not, I can still drive home, come to my house here, turn on here. I'll show you my TV setup over here. I got 5 TVs on my media wall over here, and I'll turn on Sunday Night Football and a couple of highlight shows, and I still don't have to go to the bathroom. I can make it until halftime of Sunday Night Football, which by then is probably, 10 hours, like 9 hours, whatever, since my last bathroom break. So yeah, physically I'm good, at least for now, knock on wood.
All right, well, I'm going to jump down the rundown because you showed me the home setup there. After all these years of doing RedZone, are you able to just watch sport? Like, can you turn on the golf? I don't know if you're a golf fan, but can you turn on the golf and just watch the PGA Tour or just watch one tournament? Or do you need Web.com Tour on, the LPGA, the European Tour, the Australasian Tour? Do you need like 6 going at once, or can you still just sit and enjoy the nice solo broadcast?
Well, the answer to that is kind of, yes, I can enjoy one broadcast, but no, I don't enjoy just one broadcast, usually unless it's like the final round of the Masters and it's Tiger Woods versus Adam Scott or something like amazing in the final grouping, I'll put on golf or whatever other sport in the off season. I love college basketball. I'll watch NBA. I'll put on a good NHL game or whatever, but I'll put that on my middle screen. But I still want stuff. I like other stimulus on the outside. So I'll put a couple of news channels on. I'll put like over right here right now. I don't know if when I showed you the screen, I've got one of the old Star Wars movies on in my lower right screen over here. So it's like I can multitask in my brain even when I'm not doing it on NFL RedZone, and which is one of the reasons why I put 5 big screens on my media wall here in my place.
Well, Scott, I got to tell you, your partner friends down here at ESPN and Disney are happy because you just mentioned about 4 different ESPN properties and then Star Wars, which is part of the Disney family. So there's a lot of very happy bosses with how that landed. So thank you for that.
I'm a big Star Wars franchise fan. I'm a massive Marvel movie fan. So if any executives are listening and want to throw some swag my way, I have no problem. I'll give you my home address.
I got a feeling we'll be seeing you down on these shores shortly with that. Let's kick it to just, let's pull it back for a sec. Big picture worldwide. Does it ever dawn on you that, you're one of the first voices, maybe the first voice that brings a lot of new fans into NFL? We know that a huge entry for watching NFL, you catch a game, play fantasy, check out RedZone. Does it ever dawn on you? It's like, wow, like I am quite a big part of the kind of the entryway for a lot of new fans, and the sport is growing massively overseas.
It definitely occurs to me, and I take that as a big responsibility. Now, I'm old enough to go back into the late 1970s is when I started becoming an NFL fan. Now, some of your audience will know this, but there was an old broadcaster named Howard Cosell. Okay, you're probably familiar with him. Some of you guys might know him. And he did Monday Night Football, right? He was the controversial and energetic and even pompous or egotistical voice of Monday Night Football. And he would do halftime highlights. Now, back in the late 1970s, here in the United States, you couldn't see. There were no highlight shows. ESPN wasn't around. But Howard Cosell doing halftime highlights was how people got to see all the other NFL teams that weren't in their home city. But that was a day after the broadcast, the day after the games. You'd stay up, on Monday night and watch halftime highlights. Well, then through the late 80s and into the 90s, Chris Berman on ESPN in the United States and probably around the world as well would do NFL Primetime, the highlight show of record. In terms of when you wanted to see everything else that happened in the NFL, you would go to Chris Berman, Tom Jackson, and NFL Primetime. But that was Sunday night, hours after the games had been played. Well, now I sit in a seat where I am bringing people the 10,000-foot view of the NFL in real time. And so just as I was a fan of Howard Cosell and Chris Berman and would be a football junkie who had to get that, I wanted to know what was happening, not only for my own hometown team, but every other team. I recognize that I sit in that seat right now. And so I want to deliver the absolute best football product that is available on earth. And hopefully we strive for that. Hopefully we achieve it to some degree.
Well, the passion certainly comes through. The energy certainly comes through. On that note, question we got from a bunch of people here. They want to know, because fantasy is tied to RedZone and RedZone is tied to fantasy. Do you still play fantasy at this point? And if so, is it hard on screen? Say you've drafted Rashad Bateman and he breaks off another 50-yard plus touchdown. Is it hard to just not little fist pump like a champion on air when something like that comes off, knowing he's sitting in your wide receiver 2 spot?
Funny you should mention that. Yes, I do play fantasy football. I'm in 2 leagues. Usually I only like to be in 1 league because I don't like the rooting conflict of interests and stuff like that. Like, oh, am I happy or am I sad that Christian McCaffrey just scored a touchdown? So yes, I play. I'm in 2 leagues, and I am a Rashad Bateman owner in my second league. So when he scored 2 touchdowns in the first 2 weeks of the season as you and I speak right now, including tied for the longest receiving touchdown of the season, 75 yards. Robbie Anderson from the Panthers had one as well. But when he hit that 75-yarder, and we did that, I may have given it a little extra touchdown call, but I defy anyone to tell me that they think I'm biased one way or another. Because when my fantasy opponents score, I realize that millions of people out there are thrilled for that. And so I'm going to give that a good call, just the way I would give Rashad Bateman or, Jalen Waddle or whoever else that I have on my team. And by the way, as we speak, 2 leagues. So I'm 2-0 in my main league, my NFL league, with a bunch of heavy hitters that know the sport. And then in my church league, which is my second league, I'm 1-1. But we came up against the buzzsaw, the highest scorer in week 1. It was a tough thing. I say we because I have co-owners in my teams. My brother in my one league, and then my best friend in LA, we co-own a team together. So yeah.
Rooting interests aside, there's got to be moments where, and everyone knows about the witching hour when it is flying off the handle, and we've had that in the first couple of weeks. There's been some moments. A couple of guys have asked, and Kieran's one of them. He wanted to know, is there a standout moment, whether it's a single play or perhaps a sequence, that really stands out to you as one of the most memorable experiences you've had on air with Red Zone in full flight?
Yeah, there's a couple of different moments. If I can list 2 for you. One, interestingly enough, was the very first episode in the very first season of NFL Red Zone. 2009, September 13th, our debut show. Myself and everyone else on the staff was excited, but also kind of nervous. Like this, none of us had ever done anything like this before. So could we pull it off? And what would it be like as a viewing experience? And September 13th, 2009, I believe it was in the late window. I'm pretty sure it was in the late window. Broncos, Bengals, and Brandon Stokely, the old wide receiver, caught, and I want to say it was an 87-yard touchdown with less than 10 seconds to go on the clock, and it was a tip pass. I know some people that are listening to me describe this can picture it in their head right there, that it was a ball that was almost should have been intercepted, but it bopped up in the air. Stokely kept running, so he was behind the defenders by the time it came down. Now, the thing that was amazing about that, not only because it was dramatic football, but we chose to cut to that game right before that play. They were on the 13-yard line, their own 13-yard line. There was no expectation that there was going to be a game-winning touchdown right then and there, and yet we caught it live, and all of us in the studio and all of us in the control room were like, oh my gosh, we've just hit on something here, because this happened right now, and this could happen every week. We could have a moment like this where the jaw-dropping moment of the NFL will be seen live on NFL Red Zone by people that live in an opposite city of where the stadium is that the jaw-dropping moment just happened, or in a completely different country and a completely different continent from where it's happening. And so to deliver that still gives me goosebumps, that it was season 1, week 1, show 1, and we had that moment. That was amazing. And then the other one that everyone loves to talk about is 2012. Multiple games going on around the league, and my producer at the time, Kent Camara, the original producer of NFL Red Zone, amazing friend and colleague, he decided to go triple box because there were 3 moments that was like, wow, we're in the final minute of these 3 games and something could happen here. And the triple box we went to was as follows. Rookie quarterback Robert Griffin III, quarterbacking the then Washington Redskins, and they had the lead and the ball. They were trying to run out the clock, and instead of running out the clock, he runs down the sideline for a 76-yard game-clinching, game-sealing touchdown, and it was at FedEx Field at Washington Stadium, so the crowd is just going ape because they're like, we finally have our franchise quarterback, and this guy is the future, and he's a dual threat, and he's everything, and he just won the game with a 76-yard speed-burning touchdown at the sideline. That happened. At the top of the screen, we had rookie quarterback Russell Wilson throwing what would be a game-winning touchdown pass to Sidney Rice, the old wide receiver for the Seahawks, to beat Tom Brady and the New England Patriots in the last 60 seconds of the game and whatnot. That happened probably 6 seconds after Robert Griffin III went into the end zone for the touchdown. And about 6 seconds after that in the triple box, the Arizona Cardinals were lining up for the last play of regulation in a tie game. And Arizona's kicker, Jay Feely, I believe it was at the time, sends it up, had all the distance on the game-winning kick, but it hits the upright and goes back out onto the field. Clock goes to 0. We're going to overtime in Arizona. And it was drama in a triple box. And we were like, this is it. We have just seen the future of football television right here. And I'm not sure we've ever had a moment in a triple box or a quad box that was quite like that in terms of drama. So those are the two that stood out.
I think it's that drama, and it's very relatable for fans over this side, because you being on set and being live and no breaks, and Australians either being early in the morning, trying not to wake up the kids, the partner, the neighbor, whatever, or maybe they're at work already. We're two of the demographics here that can't sit down and have a cookie or maybe a drink or something to calm down after these nerves. We feel that kind of emotional exhaustion just erupt. I think back to, you mentioned the surprise ones as well. There was a Hail Mary heave to AJ on the Bengals side 1 year that clearly fell short, had no chance. It was tipped up and AJ Green was sitting at the back of the end zone having a cup of tea and hauled one in. And it's that surprise where everyone in the office is watching and feeling similar to you, like, no, that's not, oh my God, what on earth just happened? So I think that is part of this kind of experience. It does capture what we all go through watching in our funny little time zone down here. You mentioned
I would say this on that aspect. I've often said, I don't know if you're a movie fan. I'm a huge movie fan. I'm sure there's many movie fans watching this interview. It's like a great action movie. Now, a great action movie doesn't always have to have an explosion every 2 seconds on the screen. But a great action movie will always make you feel like the next unbelievable moment of action is right around the corner. And the next one's even going to deliver something more than the previous action sequences didn't. So NFL Red Zone is like that, I believe, where we have lulls in the game, at different times where it's not constant touchdowns being scored. But if you're conditioned and you've watched it enough, you have that sense, that feeling. And there's very few things in our lives that can provide that emotional stimulation of the next great thing that I'm going to be talking about for the rest of the week with my buddies at work or my neighbors or my relatives is going to happen any moment, and I'm going to see it live. And it's a thrill ride. It's a thrill ride to be in the studio for it, and I can kind of appreciate what it's like to be at home on the living room couch, even at 6 a.m. and say, this is where I get my sports fandom from.
Well, a bunch of sports fans down here, and a few of my colleagues in the Australian sports media down here wanted to know, you mentioned the newsroom there, or the set there.
Yeah.
What's it like? Who's in your ear? How is it like? Do you have 11 producers talking to you all at once about different games? Are you seeing multiple screens? What's that like? Is it more of the former or the latter there? And Murray specifically, and I know Murray's a producer down here, he wanted to know, what's the turnaround time when you don't capture something live and you have to go to, double box, triple box, quad box, however many. What's the turnaround time that someone could get something straight up on screen for you and you're ready to go?
All right, well, the first part of the question, so I'm in the studio, and which is green screen, by the way. That always freaks people out. The background that you see at the start of the show when I say, hi, everyone, welcome to NFL Red Zone presented by Prime Video, is green screen behind me. But hey, so are the Marvel Avengers movies too. I hate to break that to you. That's not real.
Beautiful
either.
thing.
But,
it's a beautiful thing.
But so then when that desk that you see me standing at, that's real. Okay. I'm at the desk. I only stand there for the first 30 seconds of the show when you see me on camera. As soon as I'm done with saying hello, let's go to the Octo Box, 7 hours of commercial-free football starting out, I walk from behind the desk over about, pardon me, I'll try and use meters here, probably about 2 or 3 meters to a wall of monitors. And we have, what is it? It's like 8 huge monitors that can each be divided up into a quad box themselves. So we can put 20 different sources up on these monitors if we wanted to. Usually we only need 9 because that's usually the high water mark of how many games we have in the early window. And then I've got every game on. Then I've got a separate monitor to see what the audience at home is seeing at any given moment. Then I have a monitor that is designated to the scoreboard. We put up the scoreboard every once in a while, every hour or so, we'll put up the scores. I can see that all the time because that's a quick reference for me. Okay, how many one-possession games do we have? Where's the field position? Who has the football at any given time? And obviously, I can look at the monitors too. So there's the stimulation. Interestingly enough, in the studio, it's rather quiet because my microphone can be hot at any given time. So people can't be talking in the studio. Everyone's kind of got to be quiet. And then boom, I come on and I start talking and whatnot. So if you were in the studio, you'd love that you could see every game, but you'd be surprised that it's like, well, there's no sound and everything. So I have my earpiece. We call it an IFB in American television terms, but my earpiece is in, and then I can have multiple voices in my ear. Usually it's the producer, the main line producer, which is either McEnroe Francis in the early window or Brian Nettles in the late window. They're both excellent TV pros, and they have about 10 different people talking to them at one time. They filter that down, and then we'll get in my ear and say, hey, the Lions just got a 50-yard play. They're first and goal from the 8. Let's go to Detroit. Okay, boom. Then I tell the audience that. So that's a little bit like the setup. And there's probably 30-some people, depending on, some people have multiple tasks to do, but there's probably 30-some people working behind the scenes on NFL Red Zone to make it smooth. The second part of your question, how quick is the turnaround time? Sometimes it depends. It depends on how married we are to what we have on the screen at that time. If we're in a double box and two teams are first and goal, and I say, oh, let's go back and forth, Cowboys offense, Patriots offense, whatever. And we're going back and forth, and then the Detroit Lions hit a 50-yard play, that's going to have to sit for a second. We're not going to interrupt just for that because we could get a live touchdown at any moment between these two games. On other set of circumstances, if we're on a game and that game's on the 40-yard line and no one's in the red zone, but the Lions just hit a 50-yard play to get down to 1st and 10, we're going to cut to Ford Field, pick up the 1st and 10 or 1st and goal from wherever for the Lions, and then I'm going to rewind immediately. Here's Amon-Ra St. Brown on a reverse that got him 50 yards down the field to get him 1st and goal. And the turnaround time can be seconds. We will show stuff sometimes. We'll be on a live game, and that play will score. Whoever we're on live will score. And that guy will still be celebrating in the end zone, and we've already queued up another touchdown from another game where that guy is still celebrating in the end zone, and we're already on the snap showing it to you. Sometimes it's a matter of less than 10 seconds. Other times it might take a minute or two if the live action is something that we're married to. All your producers will understand exactly the explanation that I just gave there. And that's when we do a red alert. You've seen or heard we do a red alert. If we're married to two games and then we get a touchdown that's scored, we're like, we kind of consider it like airplanes, like air traffic control. There's airplanes, and every touchdown is an airplane. And it's our job to get that one up into the sky, meaning to get it to you at home. We had a touchdown. Okay, it's on the runway. It needs to be the next thing that takes off, right? But if we got multiple touchdowns, we got to stack up those airplanes, and we'll get them off the runway, but it might take a minute. So it's a heck of an endeavor, and it's fun to do. There's nothing like it, I don't think, on sports television, quite frankly.
All right. Well, I want to be mindful of your time here. Got a couple
we can
more.
Go a little bit longer. I'm having fun. If you want to go longer, I can go longer.
Well, you've talked about what it's like to be in the chair, the operation, and one of the questions we got coming in appropriately from a man named Oz is he wants to know, you mentioned you're a big movie fan. I'm sure you get tons of friends and colleagues across the industry. If you could see for 1 week someone sit in your chair and give it a go, whether that's from the movie world, the entertainment world, sports media world, past or present, you mentioned some of the greats that you remember from your time coming into NFL fandom. Who's the person you'd pick to sit in that chair and give it a whirl for 1 week before handing the reins back to you?
I'd pick someone horrible because that way I would get my job back the next week. No. I often wonder, I made the analogy earlier, Howard Cosell was someone that I grew up in. Howard, he loved Howard. Howard loved Howard. Okay. That's probably the nicest way to say it. but he was very dramatic, and he always made an event feel big. And there are certain broadcasters, sportscasters or otherwise, who can make an event feel big. And he had that ability. I would love to see him do it. He's long since passed, and then Chris Berman, who is semi-retired, who was the voice of the NFL, for me growing up when I was in college and then early in my sportscasting career. I think Boomer would love doing it as well. Those are the ones I can't think of. I'm trying to think of anyone like someone would have to be pretty robotic because it's so multitasking. You better have a very disciplined, organized mind. So maybe someone from the Marvel universe, maybe Vision. Vision from the Marvel universe. He's calculating. He's not going to panic. He's not going to get overly emotional. He's there he's there, and he chose to do good. He could have gone a number of different directions after he, got the Infinity Stone in the forehead and all that. Maybe Vision. He could handle it pretty well. He's got a great voice. That was Paul Bettany, I think, is the actor, right? He's got a great voice, so maybe him.
A very good answer. Very well justified there across the board. Vision. Yes, look, the Disney bosses would be more than happy with that answer. These days are huge. I imagine they're exhausting and exhilarating in a unique and incomparable way. Got a question in from Phil who wants to know, when you finally get home, and we've mentioned the first thing you do is not trot off to the loo, but when you finally get home on a Sunday night, put your feet up. What's the beverage of choice? Adult beverage or normal beverage, whatever it is. What do you sit down and crack open?
Well, it's usually two. By the way, I've got one right over here. I've got some electrolyte water here, and we call this one a Bubba cup. Bubba, it's like, of course, I'm going to do ounces again, but it's the size of portions.
It's the size of portions that Australian travelers to the US are well accustomed to.
Yes. It's the shocking size. So I got to rehydrate. So that'll be filled with water with some little electrolytes or something put in it. But if I want something, something a little bit, celebratory at the end of a show, I like Belvedere with like soda and like orange juice in it. Just stir that up on some ice, and that's a nice drink. And I'll put on Sunday Night Football, like I said, and then order. My Sunday night meal is a total cheat meal. I don't worry about the diet. I don't worry about calories. I don't worry about nutrition. Whatever my brain feels like it wants, I go ahead and order it. So
we got to know, what was the week 2 cheat meal then?
Oh, okay. We've got I'm going to mention another branding. Out here in Los Angeles, we have fast food Mexican place called Del Taco. And I crushed a couple of beef burritos, extra cheese and red sauce. I had chicken quesadillas, and I had a crispy chicken taco. All of that. The sack when it comes, because we can get anything delivered here, and so the sack when it comes from the delivery person, it's like it's just heavy. And it was glorious. And then, by the way, I live alone, so there's an aroma that happens after that, and I don't worry about that. And then, so I had a couple beverages with that, and then by the end of Sunday Night Football, I polish off some Chubby Hubby ice cream. It's a Ben & Jerry's. You guys have Ben & Jerry's there? So it's an international brand. So Ben & Jerry's Chubby Hubby. Google it. Thank me later. Awesome. Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting cravings now. We'll close out this one. We'll take it back to the field. We've talked about, this season, Rashad Bateman. Obviously some fan interest there, something that I share, fantasy related as well. But for fans out there watching, we know about the Chiefs. We know about the Bills. The Dolphins made a huge splash offensively. We know the big names. I want to ask, from your purview, from your view, who are the sneaky entertaining teams to be catching this season on RedZone, on NFL broadcasts? Who are the teams that are really catching eye, worth watching, and why is that answer the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Well, you could go Jags. Trevor Lawrence is starting to look good. And I actually predicted everyone was so high and still should be on Travis Etienne, obviously the first-round running back who didn't take a snap last year, suffered the injury in training camp and didn't play. But James Robinson is still a legitimate NFL running back, and he's coming back from what was a season-ending injury. Christian Kirk, some people laughed when they gave him, I think it was $75 million. The Jags gave him in free agency, and we're like, he's been a number 2 or number 3 wide receiver, and he's played well in the first couple of weeks. But okay, I'll give you the Jags in the AFC. In the NFC, the Detroit Hard Knocks Lions have scored 35 or more points in both of their games so far. And going back to week 18 of last year, they scored 35, I think 35 exactly. They have not scored 35 or more in 3 straight games since the 1950s. I'm telling you, man, Amon-Ra St. Brown is legit number 1, and he's going to win some fantasy leagues this year, assuming he stays healthy. They built some other wide receivers around. They got DJ Chark from the Jags, as a matter of fact. TJ Hawkinson is a nice tight end. A 2-headed running back in DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. And then Jared Goff is still made it to a Super Bowl earlier in his career and has proven that he can distribute the football. And then Dan Campbell and that coaching staff, they don't care. They have no conscience whatsoever. They'll wing it around. They don't care. Like they're gonna go full out, no brakes, all gas to win. They're a fun team to watch so far. And we'll see if it's sustainable throughout the year. It would be real fun because I was born and raised in the Detroit area, and all of my high school buddies still live and die with the Detroit Lions. So if they can be a legitimate contender for a playoff spot this year, that city will erupt, and we'll have fun covering it on Red Zone.
Well, look, Jared Goff has shown early in his career, if you build a nice offensive line in front of him and set the table with some receivers, as you said, he can get that ball around. He can spread it out and distribute it. So a bit of fun there in Detroit. I love those answers. I love that it has been a massive shakeup, especially that NFC side of things. I mean, this is anyone's guess at this point. You've got a team like the 2-0 Bucks that no one has left a Bucks game going, I'm convinced they're making a run. Yep. Tom Brady, regardless. Yep. I want to thank you a lot for the time today. We'll wrap it up in a sec. There's a few. We've gone from questions to just straight up requests. Australians don't lack for gumption, neither do Kiwis.
I've been to Australia. I'm making a promise right now. I've been to Australia. I will come back to Australia sometime. And New Zealand has been on my list. I want to go hiking in New Zealand. I want to meet the New Zealand fans. I want to share a pint with you all and whatnot. Someday, Lord willing, it will happen. And we'll make the announcement, and maybe I'll do like a Red Zone meet and greet or something when I get there.
Look, all I'll say is, recent rugby results aside, New Zealand is a gorgeous place to go visit. Phenomenal land and people to go check out. Good food, good wine as well, if that tickles the fancy. But so we've got requests here, and I've told the guys, look, this isn't happening. We've got requests. Can we get a shout out for 3 a.m. Red Zone dads on air? I'm not sure about that, but I'm sure the sentiment is well received. And a few other fans of some franchises like, the Texans, where it's been worse, but it's not great. And Brad is a hardened Panthers fan who just would love some love if the Panthers do anything. And they, you know what? They will. Between McCaffrey and DJ Moore and some of the other weapons, they will have their moment to shine. But I think it just speaks to how much people love what you get to present and what you share for NFL fans, rusty and crusted on like myself, and new and bright-eyed that are just entering into the NFL world.
Okay, well, let's take them one at a time. The first one was a shout out for 3 a.m. Red Zone dads, did you say?
Yeah, we should say dads and moms. It's 2022 here.
Okay. Well, by the way, I'm in Los Angeles. I don't know if you can hear that. There is suddenly a siren outside of my place here. So
we know it's the Del Taco. That's fine.
Yeah, it very well could be. It's a 5-alarm fire with Del Taco. Okay. Hey, everybody, it's Scott Hanson from NFL RedZone. Special shout out to all the 3 a.m. RedZone moms and dads that are watching 7 hours of commercial-free football. Love you guys.
I don't think we could end the chat any better than that.
Clip
You've
that
made
for them
everyone.
and send it to them, and hopefully they enjoy that one. And
You've
for the
made a lot of
Panthers fan,
people
I already forgot his name, but for the Panthers fan, help is on the way. Christian McCaffrey is not capable of being as quiet as he's been in the first 2 weeks. He's gonna, and by the way, he ended up with over 100 scrimmage yards. It was a quiet 100 scrimmage yards. He got like a 49-yarder in the fourth quarter, I believe, to put him over. But like, don't worry, it's gonna turn around. And if it doesn't, they'll be shopping for some new people in the franchise, if you know what I'm saying. So, yeah.
We can't end on any better note than that. So thank you so much for the time. For everybody watching, it's a great time of year. Football's back. It's in full flight. You saw, Scott showed you his setup. My setup for me, got ESPN 1 running on one, ESPN 2 running on the other, Red Zone running, football galore. You can't get enough of it. So, Scott, thank you again for joining us. We hope you have a sensational rest of the season. And we're looking forward to joining you. For now, one more week at 3 a.m., then a little time change, 4 a.m., a month or so later, 5 a.m. But thank you again for the time and chatting today.
Awesome to be with you. Let's do this again somewhere down the road. And much love and shout out to all the Aussies, all the Kiwis watching. We'll see you on Sunday.